Hey, this is Nick the Mining Book Guy. It's early morning, Wednesday, April 15th, 2020. Before I get into some companies, there's three big themes that I'm following right now. Gold as a huge standout as in the commodity space. Discovery, something not everyone feels as strongly as I do, but discoveries are definitely getting attention. And number three, where can you actually do work in the world, whether you're a producer, explorer, or whatever? And two areas that I've really honed in on are Western Australia and West Africa. That's a good segue to this image here, which is a portion of West Africa. This is actually the southern part of the Senegal Mali shear zone, kind of on the border of Senegal and Mali. Very prolific. Some of the best tier one gold mines are here. You can see this basic list. This image is a little bit old, but it still has some really nice detail. And so the focus here is Roscan Gold, which you can see the main website. That is ROS on the TSXV. But I'm going to also talk a little bit about two others. There's Oklo Resources, OKU, on the ASX. The main deposit's actually right here. You can see that Seiko Oklo. And number three, Chesser Resources, which is CHZ on the ASX. That's actually located up here in Senegal, closer to the Barrick mines. So in this area, there's a lot of very successful producing mines, and there are successful explorers. And I've honed in on. I'm going to explain more on why I've honed in on this, but I think it's the most exciting gold district, established gold district with emerging discoveries of multiple companies in the world right now. There, of course, are other exciting gold discoveries in different parts of the world, but I can't think of any other places where you've had three discoveries at around the same amount of time in an area where I think all three could be legitimate M&A candidates in the very near future. Anyway, I'm going to be trying to sell you on that. I do need to provide disclosure before I move on with Roscan, which well, all three of those companies I mentioned, I own a lot of shares of all three. I'm betting the farm on them, but Roscan is the main focus here, and I'm going to tell you why I think there's more urgency and excitement in the very, very short term with this company than I think anything else I follow at the very moment. I'm not going to tell you exactly how many shares I own in total, but I will tell you just since news at the beginning of this week, in the last 2 days, I've added 300,000 shares or so to what was already a substantial amount. So, you think about it, that's a lot of money. And I'm going to, give you reasons for my conviction there. But I can buy or sell shares at any time. I am completely independent from the companies, all three companies, and I'm independent from any company that I talk about in these videos. The only time I've ever received any compensation was for site visits, and actually the only compensation was being full expenses paid on my trips there. So some people are new to my email list and my videos. That's always been the case. Nothing has changed with the independence in making these videos. I just trying to create some excitement, interest for companies that I already own. Uh, I'll get back into kind of where you should be looking at in terms of how aggressive you should buy a company like Roscan. But I before I go into a timeline aspect here, I'm going to mention this. I have a love-hate relationship with this company. I loved the initial discovery back in the beginning of 2019, just a year and a few months ago. Um, there was a lot of disappointment soon after. The three main reasons being the discovery could not be validated, in my opinion, from diamond drilling, and I felt that that was maybe a little bit of bad luck. But in terms of things the company could control, um, so many warrants were issued, and I had a hard time understanding that. And I feel that, hurt that share structure. And I didn't like a lot of things done on the promotional side. Now, I don't want to belabor all of those points, but I wanted to point them out because it's a company I had interest in, I lost interest, and I've really, really gained interest in, the recent history. So we'll go into the timeline, and I'll cover some more details on that. So I'm not going to be covering all news releases, but July 22nd, 2019. This is where I wasn't following too closely, but there was some intrigue and some confusion. These are very good numbers. These are better numbers than the original discovery. So I'm going to try to simplify things. But as we go down, and by the way, the news releases have really improved over time. But back at this time, I felt like they were kind of confusing. Like you have all these drill results before you get to images. So we're getting down here. So this is key. The original discovery was the central Mankuki area, which we're not really going to talk about too much. I think there's probably a decent resource there, but again, it was disappointing. When you look at all this red down here, this is where those all those numbers match up from the original highlights. Now you can immediately tell it's right at the border. And I remember seeing this and thinking, like, well, what are they going to do or how are they going to expand? That's kind of weird that they're highlighting that. So I didn't really gain interest in this is just the that central area. So that was the first time I realized, well, they had some really good results, but what are they going to do? So worth keeping in the back of your mind. Now we're moving forward. December 19th of last year, management changes. Nana Sangwa and Andrew Ramcharan, they come in together. More on them. Well, you know what? I, I guess I will mention quickly. I like Greg Eisner, who is CEO, but he's a very technical guy. He knows how to make discoveries, and I think in terms of promotion and in terms of some you know not so great things on the business side, like in terms of attention and whatnot, he was not the ideal person to run the company. I think it's great that he can focus full time on exploration now, and Nana and Andrew came in together on the business side. No, I will get back into a little bit of why I like management so much now, but we'll keep moving forward with the timeline. So this was December, and then January of this year, we're kind of completing the business side. Michael Gentile had already been announced, but not onto the board of directors. He's now a substantial shareholder. But Sir Samuel Jonah became the chairman, and I will just say I think it's very impressive to see someone of Sir Sam Jonah's stature joining the company. He um, was crucial to Ashanti Goldfields growing and eventually merging with Anglo Gold. So many people know Anglo Gold Ashanti now, but he also had a huge impact on some successful juniors in previous cycles. One worth mentioning is Equinox Minerals, which was I think sold for over 7 billion. And anyway, my understanding is he could be play an important role on the strategy side of the company, and there's a lot of reasons I believe Roscan is in a great position, um, like almost night and day this year, understanding strategy versus the previous year. He's a part of that, and the main management's part of that. So total revamp of the business side just a few months ago. Now, January 20th. Okay, so this is where we're going to talk about how I started to hone in on this district, going back to the original image, basically this whole area, the Senegal Mali Shear Zone. Something just kind of clicked with the type of news that was coming out in the first month of this year. So January 20th extends southern property boundary. So we're it's interesting because like the headline talks about it, but it's not till you get down here and you read Roscan has strategically expanded land package, crucial addition of 305 meters strike extension. And, they started drilling. So, um, should I? Yeah, I can zoom in real quick. Well, we can't see it too well, but basically, just the little area down here expanded 300 meters down. It's amazing that that was available because IM Gold is directly below, but that was an important piece of the puzzle that the area where they made the discovery, there's actually a little more room to maneuver. So that got me more interested. But I think at this stage, I owned some shares of Roscan more for a trade, but I wasn't, convinced yet that this was going to be a serious position for me. But still, that was interesting. January 20th. Literally the next day, January 21st, a company I already owned, called Chester Resources. So again, CHC on the ASX. They had some great results. Now, they're not like total barn burner results, but they're very, very good results. And without going into detail, there are signs that this looked like Fekola or Lulo. And um, the fact that that came out got me more excited about that company. I already had a fairly large position, was still growing it, after this news. And then move forward a little further, January 29th. Now, Oklo actually had some good news earlier in the month, but these are barn burner results. These are some serious numbers, and that's what led me to start growing a position in Oklo. And let me just see if it's worth showing. Uh, just to show real quick, yeah, like you could see that it was starting to grow with some good continuity into at depth. But we'll get back into Oklo later. So within a few weeks of each other, we had three companies in this area have interesting news, and I made this comment at CEO.ca, which we'll go back to a little bit later in this video as well. Let me just see. Yeah, Oklo at that time was the one that I was most interested in the results, but the market cap was closer to 100 million Aussie. And if it was smaller market cap, I would have really loaded up. But I was still buying, and I had said, I hope the stories feed off each other. Drill results in the coming weeks and months. And so that was interesting to mention that in January. And we'll as we go through the timeline, we'll see what continued to happen. Now, this was the moment where Roscan started to get a lot more interesting for me. Even here, I didn't have that large of a position. I would call these barn burner results for Roscan. So great headline, three grams per ton over 88 meters. By the way, something that took me a while to pick up on, but it's a great simple way to think about drill results. Gram meters. In this particular case, you just multiply, the grams per ton by the meters. This is well over 200 gram meters. Anything over 50, my understanding is already pretty darn good, and over 100 is excellent. And so you're scrolling down here and you're seeing, wow, over 200, 160, gosh, well over 100. Well, there were a lot of great results here. Now, the news release was better, but to me, it still wasn't that clear. We're not going to go through all of this in detail, but these were nice. These were useful looking cross sections, and you can see it looks like there's some continuity. That's something I'll get more into detail in the next news release. But in any case, this was serious to me, and I think it was the best results of any drill explorer before or during PDAC. Now, unfortunately, these results were released going right into the financial crisis, virus, everything that could go wrong, will go wrong type thing. And so I don't think it had as much of an impact as it probably should have, but that's a big reason I'm making this video right now. Now, moving forward, a week and a half or a month and a half, April 13th, the headline is very similar, but an important aspect: continuity, 220 meters. So I didn't mention this at the beginning of the video, but regardless of whether you buy any of these stocks, this is the moment that I think is most useful if you're trying to get better at interpreting news releases, because I think a lot of people struggle with it, and it took me years to start to pick this up. So hopefully what I describe now, where I'll spend the most time in this video, it will be helpful to you if you're in that situation. So a lot of great numbers, almost overwhelming, similar to the previous news release. But as we scroll down, I think they have some great visuals here. So there's three of them. This is plan view, this is a long section, and this is one cross section. So I'm going to stay on the cross section here, and then I've got the, I guess I add one extra one. I'm going to put these all side by side. So the thing is, what you want to do is be able to piece these together, and and it sometimes it takes a while. I think it's actually kind of difficult, but you really get a lot of value by kind of putting it together like a puzzle. So we're going to start with this plan view, and there's a lot of results here. Quickly, these are the new results, everything in this kind of brown color. And also, diamond holes tend to be more valuable. I mean, without going into too much detail, they're definitely valuable for the company to potentially understand structure better, to be able to do geological modeling. But they're also important for confirming that some of the cheaper AC or RC holes actually worked. And that was something that, if you remember, the central Mankuki area where the original discovery was, the diamond holes didn't really confirm. So we're down now at this Mankuki South area, and you can see there's about 500 meters of strike, and I'm just going to pick out some of the holes. So this hole, 90 meters at 0.79 grams per ton, that's actually a pretty good hole, and honestly, it's one of the quote unquote worst holes of the main holes in this diagram, which to me shows what quality of grades and widths are already here. So if we're moving up in this direction, we're looking at this diamond hole. That's the headline, 3 grams over 70 meters, and we go up a little further, 3 meters at 3 grams at 88 meters. So this is already looking like kind of a core area up here, really really high grade. Well, actually, that's the AC hole. But even here, 22 meters at 5.75. Those are still very good numbers. This RC hole actually is really good. I didn't want to dismiss that. We'll come back to that as well. And then these two diamond holes are both very strong, and this one is at depth. So this is kind of like the core area, and you're still getting decent hits at the top and bottom, but that is already showing continuity. And I think that's really, really important, because a lot of times you'll see high grade results reported by companies, and you'll have no idea how they piece together. To me, it's actually surprising how well this is coming together. But this next image is a little bit unique and extremely valuable. So it's not unique in the sense that it's a long section. And by the way, I'm really glad they included it, because they didn't have to. But it's the way it's presented, because a lot of times you won't get this amount of detail with all this color coding of the assays. I think it's actually very helpful. Now, of course, it's kind of overwhelming, but that's why I'm here to, I'm trying to figure it out, and hopefully as I talk through this, it helps you visualize it a little better. So going back again, we were looking at from this, lower grade but still great hit, going into these higher grade hits and into the deeper area here. Going back here, that first hit, this 0.79 over 90, that's right here, and you can see it's mostly those green and blue colors. And as you go towards here, then you get into those the core, very good hits, 3 over 70 right here, 3 over 88 right here, and some of the highest grades are in this area, about 36 meters at depth. So great open pittable type stuff. But as we move over, Some of the more interesting ones to me, you know, some interesting colors and a little deeper here. That's that RC hole. I really like that hole because I feel like it's potentially meaningful with this down plunge. And then here, the only unfortunate thing is that the hole got lost right at the end. I think that's going to be an exception. I think it's unlikely to happen for future holes, but at the very least, some of the highest grades were right at the end there. So we wonder, is this going to be one of the first areas that if they drill a twin hole or try to extend it again, are we below 120 meters? Are we going to get more high grades? And that's very, very important because that could give us an indication this will be a much bigger deposit, and then it really will be open to depth. We never really know how deep these things will go until you drill them. Also, keep in mind this hole is the deepest hole that hasn't been assayed yet. I think it's going to be assayed soon. So just to confirm that, I believe that's D28. Well, it doesn't matter too much, but you can see these three blue holes are going to be assayed soon. So just wanted to, it's sometimes it's hard to match up, but here's another one right here. So keeping in mind what I was describing, there seems to be a little bit of a down plunge, and that was described in the news release as well. We're looking at this. I don't want to look into the comparisons too much, but I'm bringing up the very successful monster deposit and mine in the area, the Fekola mine for B2 Gold. And if you look going towards the north, now keep in mind this is huge. This is like 2 kilometers of strike, while what we're looking at over here, this whole area would kind of like fit just right here. So it gives you an idea of the scale. What's interesting is that some of the best grades in Fekola are going deeper, going to 200 or 300 meters depth. And what I find very interesting, and we're very early with this discovery. I mean, this is excellent to have this amount of continuity already and something forming. But we can see that up north, these are some of the weaker grades. When we look at Fekola, there actually seems to be less mineralization here compared to in the southern area. But when you go deeper, that's where the highest grades are. So this is pure speculation. Again, I don't want to look into it too much, but that's what's potentially exciting here is who knows, maybe as Roscan drills this out deeper, maybe some of the best grades are going to be down here, and it's going to keep extending, towards the north. And again, to look at the plan section, that would, even though there weren't that many hits up here, at depth, it could go kind of in this direction, and we just don't know yet. So it's open at depth, and it's definitely open to the north, and hopefully that gives you an idea of the type of thing I'm looking for. But what's key is that we already have such great grades, across, shallow hits, and now it's just a matter of, how many ounces can we add, and it's an extremely exciting part of the discovery process. Like, discovery's already been made, but it's every drill hole can add a lot more, and we're going to have more assays. But that's not the only thing going on. Now, I also don't want to emphasize this too much, but this is a really important part of the story, is that everything I just described was Mankuki South, which is right now the core discovery. But there is drilling going on at Candiole West, and I'm really impressed that they've already completed a bunch of AC holes, which are fairly quick to drill, and that's usually what you use for reconnaissance. And they're going to drill up to 122 holes, 6,000 meters. I guess that's going to be over the next few weeks, and we're going to get some assays soon. So who knows what's going to happen there? But that is 8 kilometers east of the Fekola mine. So to add perspective, oh yeah, this one shows a little better. This shows where they increased Mankuki South. So like, this little little rectangle right here shows how they, pegged that land and added some. Number 5 over here, that is Candiole West, and you can see it's closer to Fecola. So we'll see what happens here. This is one area where I have to give credit to the management team, to Nana. His thoughts on it, because I've talked to him, a few times, on the phone since PDAC. Oh, actually, this is a good time to very quickly say a turning point for me with the company. A good friend of mine at PDAC is the one who said, "Nick, you have to meet Nana while you're here." And it's weird. I wasn't necessarily going to meet Roscan, even though, like I told you, I thought it was a good trade, and I was already interested by the news, the discovery right before PDAC. But I'm so glad I met Nana and Andrew, because I had a fantastic first impression. And for anyone that follows me, I like a lot of the management teams that I invest in, but I probably had the best first impression of Nana and Andrew as I did of Haya at Osino, who I really respect, and that's still one of my top holdings as well. So that said something right there, and I've had a few calls with Nana and Andrew since then, and I think it really validates how thoughtful they are on strategy and contingency planning. And in this particular case, I will come back to Oklo later, but one thing I really like that I see Roscan doing earlier than Oklo, I feel that Oklo up here, they didn't, even though they did drill some other properties, I feel they didn't quickly enough go after so many targets. And I feel that Roscan, that's exactly what they're doing right now. So we don't know what's going to happen here, but my understanding is, hey, you know what? They might miss. Maybe it doesn't work out. Well, they'll move on to another target. I'm not sure which one, but there's a few right here, and there might actually be some other targets that develop because of termite sampling and some geochem type things that Roscan has been very successful with. That's how they made these initial discoveries. So, sorry, that was a little longer than expected, but I just want to emphasize a big part of why I'm excited about the company isn't just the project, which is great in itself. It's my understanding of how strong management is now, and how much I think they're a company was already doing okay last year, but I would say it's almost like a turnaround. Like it's like night and day on the business side. So that is all fantastic. Now, talking about, let me just see real here. Oh yeah, I guess just talking about where we're at in terms of market cap. So I should have said this earlier. Even though I'm not saying how many shares I own in total, my cost average overall is still like 18 or 19 cents. So it's not that far from where the current price is. When we're looking at 21 and a half cents, it's in the last year, it's still kind of, just above where it's been trading. Market cap 36 million. Now, what's important here, and we're going to talk a little bit about the warrants. I think most people who have followed the company and most people who learn about this are thinking, oh, well, it must not be moving because there's so many warrants out. There's a warrant overhang. Well, there's some truth to that. And the thing is, I felt that was a main reason for there being an issue here. Now, I actually see a very positive side of the warrants. So it's not clear cut, but going back to July 2018, this was when 35 million warrants were issued at 12 cents for 24 months. So in July 26, or that time 2020, coming up in a few months, these will expire, and it's very likely that basically, if they're 12-cent warrants, they're well in the money at 21 cents. There's no way I see this stock going back down to that level. I mean, we can talk a little more about that a little later, but because of that, if you multiply 35 million by 12 cents, you get about 4 million Canadian. What's interesting about the strategic nature of these warrants now is knowing that they're very likely to mostly or all of those warrants be exercised, that would put up to 4 million, probably well over $3 million into Roscan's coffers. They can definitely, will have enough cash until until we get to that point. And so there was always the possibility Roscan could do a raise, but they don't have to. They don't have that pressure. And my guess is if they did a raise, there's a better chance it could be like a strategic investment, at a premium. I mean, who knows? Again, that's speculation, but it does go back to being in a great location. So my point being, I think rather than looking at the warrants in a negative, I'd say look at it as a positive, especially if you are as excited about this discovery as I am. And I'll keep harping on this all the way until the end of this video. But when we include all the warrants and options, the fully diluted market cap, 283 million, and we multiply that by the share price, we're getting, or 21-22 cents, we're getting about 60 million Canadian. Now, really, that is not a lot for the results that they have. I have another comparison which isn't perfect. So Papillon Resources, this, and by the way, this PowerPoint is from 2011. This was right in the middle of the last major gold bull market, or a couple years, 2009 to 2011, and they were making a discovery. So there was a tailwind. That's something that I think may happen for Roscan, or it's almost arguably just starting to happen right now in terms of gold moving up. We'll see where that goes. But what's key here, it's not just that this was moving up and that the share price, the enterprise value or the market cap was quite large. Many people don't realize, including myself, there were a ton of cheap options. It had to do with the acquisition of the property back in 2010. But this is a really important point. If we talk about a warrant overhang, well, shouldn't Papillon have had an overhang for all of these options? They effectively worked in a similar way, and there was an expiration date, within a year and a half of this time, or within 2 years. It was always there. Well in the money. If they're at 20 cents and this was trading at 80 cents. The point being, the discovery eventually outweighed, any overhang. I think the same thing will happen with Roscan. And also keep in mind, this enterprise value is not even based on the fully diluted. If we're including the in the money warrants, you're starting to get well over 150 million. Even in a gold bull market, really, these results, the results that Papillon had at this point, they are no better. When I've looked at them, they're no better than what Roscan already has, or what Oklo has. We'll get into Oklo as well. So Roscan at 60 million, and everything, putting everything together, I think it's a gift that that we actually have these warrants here. And I think psychologically there's no reason, or many people, they'll always come back to, oh, that's why there's overhang. I think it has more to do with the macro factors, and it's just a matter of time for there to be a breakout here. Now, even if that doesn't happen, I think we're more likely to have a floor price, something like 20 cents. I think that there are more and more institutions that are picking up on this. But a big reason I'm talking about Roscan for the email list, it's not so much that I feel like in this particular case I need you to buy. Sometimes when I present a company, I really want retail people to buy. I think this is a company that for some reason had much more of a retail following last year. Now, there's definitely still a retail following, but I could tell based on the discovery and comparing it to other discoveries, whether they're TSX listed or ASX listed, whether it's on Twitter or co.ca, fewer people have been talking about this one. They actually haven't been talking about the Oklo results that much either. So there's a relative neglect of this area, which really surprises me because it seems like everyone loves B2 Gold. And so I personally love to see those, gaps in thinking. But on the other hand, I feel institutions are very in tune with what's going on with Roscan and Oklo right now. So I'm thinking, maybe I can increase my credibility a little bit if Roscan actually does jump in the next few days. And what the best thing would be if, through the end of this week, you're still able to buy Roscan at 22 cents or less, and then it pops up to 30 cents within a week or two. I'm not saying that will happen, but that's what I'm looking for. And I think, if that's all you were looking for a 40 or 50% return, that is something you could find with Roscan, like as more and more people become aware of these results. But I'm longer term thinking this is an excellent takeout target, and this is just throwing numbers in the air. I think, looking at a five bagger, or this trading up to $1 or something, that's not unreasonable at all. Who knows? It depends on the gold price. It depends on excitement in the area. But I did want to finish this off talking a little more about the other companies and some compare and contrast. I see very little negative with Roscan like right now. It's really hard to, because I think they've covered all their bases. But to me, the most negative thing is a general for the area. It's the jurisdiction risk, the geopolitical situation. This is actually a nice map. By the way, the key links should be below this video. I always forget to mention that, but you can scroll down from this video to click on many of the key links. At any time. But this one's worth taking a look at. Mali is a big country. There's a lot of terrorism in Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali. But as we move over in this direction, so Bamako, the capital's here, all the Senegal Marshir zone is right here. Everything we were just describing is down here. There are some mines down here as well. Basically, all of Mali's mines aren't really in a danger zone, but you never know if that will change. I personally think this is one of the safest parts of West Africa because there are so many important mines there already, but you never know. So, and of course, if Bamako, if something happened to the government, that would be really bad. I think that's the biggest risk. That hasn't changed for years. Obviously, Fekola is a huge success, but just keep that in mind. That's what I consider the biggest risk right now. I think operationally, things are excellent, and I have no reason to think that anything's going to stop in Mali in terms of drilling, because it's not just Oklo or Roscan. There's other companies that are drilling as well. Let me see if those were supposed to show up something, but I'm going to move on to just talking briefly about the other companies. So, of the three companies, I currently own the least of Oklo, but I used to own a lot more Oklo than Roscan. A big reason that I own less is because of the market cap. This is not really a negative on Oklo. It's just that, and actually I did a calculation. It's not worth going into detail, but I think based on 26 or 27 cents, if you fully diluted with some, they have these weird zero priced options or something or another, which I'm not a huge fan of, but you can look that up on your own time if you're interested. Basically, when it comes down to it, if you fully diluted market cap and you convert it to Canadian, Oklo turns into maybe 120 million Canadian, maybe 115 million. Effectively, the market cap is twice as much as Roscan, maybe a little less than that, but we'll say roughly twice as much. I feel very strongly that Roscan is worth far more than half of Oklo. Now, maybe it's not quite at the same level yet, and a reason for that, or I guess two reasons. One, this was actually very impressive. Oklo was able to raise 12.5 million at 21 cents right before the crash. So to me, that is a bit of an advantage, even though I think Roscan's in a good position. They do have that, either the warrant exercise or a raise, something that has to happen. Oklo doesn't have to worry about any of that, and it was a very successful raise. By the way, I don't expect Roscan to have raises with warrants in the future, but to Oklo's credit, I can't remember the last time they had any options in their raise. They seem to be very successful with these. But also, most recent news, more barn burner results, and really quickly. By the way, you can see their properties here. It kind of mixes in with Roscan's properties. I mean, they are the two competitors right next to Facola. So this is just another similar type of map. But as we scroll down, uh, early on, SK2 was the main discovery, and it was never, to me, it was never that exciting. This is very exciting. At SK1, this whole area, but especially up here, um, it's funny because it's about 500 meters of strike, very similar to Roscan's main area. And one area where they're running a little ahead, they've gone to 200 meters depth with very good continuity. And then, going towards the north, kind of like what Roscan's doing right now. They had some very nice holes in that last release. So they're expanding this, and but they've been around and or drilling much longer than Roscan. It's been 3 or 4 years, so they're much closer to a mineral resource. There are reasons for Oklo to be worth more than Roscan right now, but it's very possible Roscan will catch up quickly, and it's also possible that more people will buy Roscan just because it's cheaper. My kind of advice is, if you were looking at both of these companies, and you could only own one, I would definitely pick Roscan over Oklo. If you could own both, why not own both? But I would probably own more Roscan. I mean, I personally own more Roscan than Oklo, but I would say the same thing, especially at these valuations. But if Roscan goes up to 30 or 35 cents, hey, then maybe you would, or if Oklo comes down a bit, then you rebalance a little. But I have a very strong feeling that both of them are prime takeout candidates. Who knows? They might get taken out together. They might get combined. Again, going back, just to be clear, it wouldn't surprise me if B2 Gold is the front runner with this monster that just will constantly need more gold. And these are going to be high grade open pit deposits. Doesn't even matter if they're not even that big, even if they're a million ounce, end up only being a million ounces each. B2 Gold seems like a natural suitor. IM Gold has stuff that makes a lot of sense as well, especially for right next door to Roscan with Sirabaya. That makes sense. Don't forget Barrick makes a lot of sense too. Being up here, it's still within 40, 50 kilometers. So those are the three main ones. Endeavor no longer owns here, but there might be others. So just to be clear, that's a huge part of the value here, is that either Oklo or Roscan are excellent bolt-ons to established miners. I can't think of other gold juniors in terms of location that are better than these guys. The combination of location and the style of deposit, high grade open pit, potential satellite or standalone. So I hope that makes sense. And then to finish off, Chesser. So it's funny because if we talking about rough valuations, we've got Oklo 120 million Canadian, Roscan 60 million Canadian, and Chesser, if we fully diluted, maybe 20 million Canadian. So this is the tiny one. This, I own a lot of Chesser as well. Definitely a lot more than Oklo. Closer to where I'm at with Roscan right now. The thing about Chesser is that it's a little bit more out of the way. Again, it's up here, but Barrick is doing a lot of interesting stuff in Senegal, so it's a little bit of a different play. But I feel that it's an important part of this story as well. Chesser got hit really hard, unfortunately, because of the downturn, because they hadn't raised money, but they totally flipped. So I'm not going to talk too much about it, since this video is getting a little long. But what was key to me is that they did raise money, and they're expected to have their follow-up drill program start probably within the next month, but that needs to be announced. We'll see on that. But this is just a tip. Hot copper is an excellent place for the ASX. I have 2 posts that I made last week. I was really studying up on Chesser, so you can get a really good idea of what's exciting that's going around Chester from this post. And this is the big one. I'm going to scroll down slowly. The thing is, you need to sign up for a free Hot Copper account to easily see all these visuals, including these things. So it took me a long time to put this together, but I think it could be of interest to you if you're interested in this area. Chester is a bit of a wild card. It's going to take a little longer than Oklo or Roscan to really get moving, but it could be the biggest winner of them all. I mean, that's obviously my bet, but I think it's it's a really interesting play for the current market cap, and why not own all three? You would be copying the mining book guy portfolio, but like I said, I'm betting the farm on these three guys. Maybe one or two of them doesn't work out, and one of them's a grand slam and makes up for the other ones. That's how I feel. I feel there's a really strong possibility that all three of these companies get taken out for premiums at some point. There's, of course, there are other parts of the world that are great for gold, but again, this is what I consider the most exciting district. You've got Roscan, you've got Oklo, and you've got Chester up here. And I actually like Senegal a lot, and Chester's definitely my favorite junior in Senegal, even though there's a few other interesting ones as well. So I hope that this was useful for you. I think I should just end it here. And I've been talking a lot about these companies, at CEO.ca and on Twitter. So, you can follow Mining Book Guy on either of those places if you aren't already. But these will be interesting stories to follow, even if you don't buy them. And, we'll see what happens. I don't have a crystal ball, but, I'm putting my credibility on the line telling you Roscan is potentially the most exciting play to buy right now. And, if I was going to end with a number, I would say I would probably be buying more shares at the open today if it's actually trading down. But if I didn't own any shares at all, I would easily buy up to 25 cents and maybe even buy up to 30 cents just to get on the board with Roscan, because I know they're going to have great news flow. So just an idea. But hey, thanks for listening. This has been Nick the Mining Book Guy. Talk to you soon. Bye.